Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi. I hope you guys can't respond, but I hope you're all okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's pretty nervous and excited, which is exactly how you should feel. That is correct. That's how I felt before going. I'm sure that's how you felt too.
It is. This is Danny. I'm James.
Oh, right. Sorry, I should introduce this.
Yeah.
Danny, James, most of you guys probably know us already, but if you don't, if you were interviewed by somebody else from our company, Danny, James, nice to meet y'all.
Okay.
I just want to kick things off by saying that I'm really glad that you guys showed up. It's a really good turnout. Today we just want to go through some main points about like what it's going to be like when you arrive, at the adjustment period, and everything kind of leading up towards it. I want to talk a little bit about the cultural shock you're going to experience. It's really it's going to be an exciting time, but it's also going to be really difficult. So I just want to make sure that you get as much guidance as you need.
Exactly. We have obviously, well, we haven't all interviewed you, but we interview people and we give them as much information as we can. But we decided this was a nice way to get everybody included, so we can give you even more information about what to expect when you land.
Exactly. And because obviously this isn't a like a conversation, you guys see that you're able to ask questions in the chat bar. Use the chat bar and ask your questions. We will store all the questions. If they are answered, we got about 30 minutes to give our explanation, and then we got 30 minutes for Q&A. If we can answer your questions in the Q&A, we absolutely will do. If not, any questions that are left unanswered in the Q&A will be answered via email in the follow-up. Okay, so all right, because we don't have that much time, we're just going to dive right into it. I want to start off by talking a little bit about the culture. So obviously, we all know China is an ancient country. It is has very different kind of cultural influences that led them up to where they are now. You're going to notice that being there for sure. I wanted to talk to you guys about Confucianism and 3 different areas that you're going to notice it in. So firstly, you're going to be living in a Confucian society. This is very different. Rather than focusing on like the individualism that we cherish in the West, even though there is a huge degree of individualism in China, more and more these days, it is a collective society. What that means and what you guys will notice really obviously is that people definitely collaborate and interact in a way that is fundamentally different. It's cherishing like the group as a whole rather than the individual. So that's restating it, but give you an example. What's one of the reasons China has such a low crime rate is that people are just incredibly communal about their situation. Dive in. What was your example?
Yeah, I just think that they have a very strong moral fiber. So you won't see that many police, and you don't see any trouble, and there's very little crime. The reason for that, basically, guys, is that the people kind of all keep an eye out for each other. So, for example, if somebody were to steal something, if somebody stole a bicycle, the neighbours would all be up in arms, and there would be a little bit of sending to Coventry for that person. So it's a lot of high moral fibre. And it is rooted in Confucianism, but it means that they all kind of have a very strong outlook of the way that their society is run. And obviously, we are visitors. We're just arriving, and we have to really engage with that.
Absolutely. That's also one of the reasons why China develops so incredibly fast and can organize itself to, jump the way it has from a foundational economy all the way up to what it is today. But it also presents some difficulties when you're trying to settle into it. One of them is that you'll notice is that making friends with Chinese people, it can be quite easy in the beginning, but if you want to deeply get to know somebody, it takes a lot of time. And it really values this idea of face. So giving and saving face. So for an example of that, it would be that your relationship and how you manage it with other people, you don't want to contradict somebody in public, for example. It will lower their social status around other people. If you say you're going to go do something like show up to a party or go to a friend's house and you confirm that you will, you absolutely have to go. It's really hurtful to not do that. So those are certain kinds of things you want to keep in mind when you're in China. Another area that you're going to notice this kind of big cultural difference is going to be in the education system. The next one? Yeah, thank you. So kids, obviously, they know because of the hierarchical system that Confucianism brings and its incredible importance on self-development and listening to your parents and following rules. Kids are really, 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 really well behaved. You can see this image. This image is not just a randomly chosen one. That is often what it looks like in Chinese schools, a fair amount of the time. Obviously, you're supposed to break that mold being there. That's a big part of you being there. But you have to bear in mind these kids, they do spend most of their time in a school like the picture you're seeing now. So what that really means is that a lot of time children will be a little bit shy, a little bit reticent to engage or to break that mold.
Or make a mistake.
Or make a mistake. And you have to help nurture them a little bit along that. But what that really helps you with is not a lot of disciplinary issues in class. It's mostly about getting them to break the mold and get out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Once you scratch that surface, though, they are kids just like anywhere else.
Exactly.
And they're going to be fun, they're going to enjoy it. But it's just, your job is basically to engage and to, as you say, break the mold.
Exactly.
Bring them out of themselves.
It's many of your guys' first time teaching as well. So you may be facing a class where kids look like they're a little hesitant to engage. That might even make you nervous to engage. Don't be. Push harder. Go further, go deeper, and you will eventually build up a class very similar to what you're expecting in your own head. Very fun, very engaging. It'll start off a little nervous at first, but as you progress, it's going to become awesome.
The great thing as well, I think, is as you move on, you'll obviously, because a lot of you will be first-time teachers, you will actually start developing your own style. And the nice thing about going to China is you have a fantastic audience to start with. Very, very keen to listen to you. They'll listen to every word you say, and you'll actually learn to develop your own style. Nobody expects you to arrive and be the best teacher in the world. It's going to take a bit of time, but that's what we want.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in your work environment, obviously based off of a Confucian system as well, hierarchy is really important. You're going to need to bear in mind a lot of the time that the way that your office is structured is built around the idea that there is a hierarchical system in place. There are rules that need to be followed. Employers are really expecting that you follow that. I mean, they themselves don't know your system so well. They're learning it as they engage more and more with foreigners, foreign employees, but they themselves really cherish that hierarchical system and that system of, listening to your superiors, putting what they ask for into action, and making the most out of every class that you can without too much. I think this is a big one as well, without too much need for so much additional direction. They want to be able to give you the initial situation, and they want you to be able to undertake that. Now, obviously, they're meeting you halfway or they're trying as best as they can to meet you halfway as a foreign employee, but this is their culture, and we have to adapt to their system more than they have to adapt to ours. Yeah.
You have to have a very flexible and open attitude to working in China. You might find that some things that you'll see won't be quite what you'll expect in the UK. You may see people just spit on the street and you think that's not a great thing, I don't like that, but that's what is normal over there. So we have to adopt a very flexible and culturally open perspective in order to fit in, because we are visitors and we are there for a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
So we need to be very sensitive to the cultural differences, but things that you might think would be untoward or perhaps a little bit brusque or abrupt is really not rude or unusual at all in China.
Yeah.
People may barge past you when you're getting on the tube. You don't need to turn around and have a go, because that's just the way things are. People are busy. Personal space is not quite the same as it is in the UK.
And in your work environment, you'll notice that takes the form of oftentimes people can be quite direct with their feedback.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're angry or that they think you're doing a bad, or you're doing a bad job.
Yeah.
I received all the time working there. Sometimes you just get the feedback exactly as they think in their own heads.
Yeah.
This needs. They're not always going to sandwich it. Say this is what you did well. This is what you did poorly. This is what you did well. Oftentimes they're going to be like, this needs to get improved.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you didn't do a load of other things that are really good.
Yeah.
But you can always ask, is there anything that you think that I did really well? They will think, oh, yes, actually, and then they'll explain it to you. Yeah. If you don't ask, though, they may not tell you.
I think Chinese employees, they see things very black and white. So I think one thing that's important to mention, actually, Dan, is that you're going to go to a school and you're going to work. These schools, though, they're not state schools, they are private schools. So if you imagine this is actually a commercial business for the school. So you're going over there, your job is to engage with the children and to really get them talking. As far as they're concerned, we're going to put you through all the training. Many of you have already done the TEFL course. Fantastic. The next stage is obviously the training when you arrive. And then really they're expecting you to just knuckle under and get on with the job. So they're not prone to flowery praise and patting you on the back. It's just not really a Chinese way. So don't feel that you're not being appreciated, and don't feel that they don't like what you're doing.
Yes.
If they bring something up and say there's a problem, then obviously they can talk to you about it. But if they don't say anything, just don't expect a constant pat on the back every 5 minutes.
Yeah. Another thing that I would say is that just because that there is this, system in place doesn't mean that there's no opportunity for you to raise your concerns.
Exactly.
If you have concerns, or if you want more feedback, or if there are things that you would see that you'd like your relationship improved with with management at your school, the best way to deal with it, from my experience, is often that you don't raise a flag every time an issue happens. You don't want to be seen to be a person who's constantly a problem. The way you do it, and I found that it works for me every time, is to, over time, collect all the issues that you have, and then say at the end of your first month, sit down and say, these are and you don't present them always as issues. You present them as, say, something that you can work towards fixing. So, yes.
There we go.
We got ahead of ourselves. Yeah, so you would want to sit down and say, just these are the things that I've noticed, and do you think that they're fair issues to raise? Something like that, a very diplomatic way of approaching it. They'll be very, as long as you don't get emotive, you don't want to be too emotional. You just want to present it as it is.
Yeah.
They will be very receptive to it.
Yeah, I think if you take it in a very sober and professional manner, so if you have something to talk about, if there's an issue or there's something you need to know, or you need a little bit of advice or suggestions with your classes, anything at all, if you approach them and you talk about it with them in a very, very simple, sober, professional way, you will get so many good results. If you go and you sort of lose your steam, or you treat people with disrespect, it can go very badly. It's a very, very bad thing to do in China.
They stop listening.
They do. They stop listening, and automatically you will then be seen as possibly a thorn in the side, which if you were in the UK, you wouldn't be, because you'd be saying, hey, Danny, I've got an issue with this. I need to talk to you about it. Perhaps just a slightly different way of doing things. Make a note of something, and then when the time is right, say, may I approach you to talk to you about this? And then they'll help you.
And try to say it privately.
Yeah.
Again, losing face is not something that your boss wants to do. So if you have a go or can say anything that can be even seen to be having a go in front of their other employees, then they have to deal with it in a way that is less diplomatic. If you do it, really diplomatically on the side, you say, hey, can I just speak to you about this and this? Usually they're going to say, absolutely, not a problem. That's always been my experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about culture shock. James, I can take this one.
Yeah, well, we've got a little lovely graph here for you. There's the 4 stages of culture shock. We've got the honeymoon, anxiety, adjustment, and acceptance. Now, obviously, when you first arrive, everything is going to be quite different. Your jaw will drop daily, I would say. The food is different, it smells different, it looks different, everybody looks different. The street signs are obviously in Chinese and English quite a lot of the time. So when you first get there, you're going to be in a bubble of wonder to some degree. Once that wears off, there is a natural prone for people to feel slightly anxious, or I feel a little bit sort of lost. There will be a stage where you may feel a little bit homesick.
Very much.
That's quite normal. The next stage is where you start to realize where you fit in and how you fit in. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this seminar. When you do that adjustment, you automatically start realizing that you are, you're malleable, and so are they. But we are a visitor in their country. So the malleability really has to be mostly on our side. But once you get to that stage, as Danny quite rightly said, the results you get from talking and expressing and dealing with the employers, you'll start accepting China for what it is. And then everything goes fantastically. You'll have a great time. You'll make a lot of friends. What seems to be a mountain sometimes at the beginning is actually just very small stages. You will get there, but don't expect to just get everything perfect on day one. It just doesn't happen that way.
I know that some of you have experienced culture shock before, and I know many of you have traveled abroad before. But for those who haven't done this before, I think that we take for granted sometimes how much of our environment we just assume is replicated everywhere in the world.
We take it for granted.
We really take it for granted. And when you go somewhere else, even the small little details, you can't take them in because there's so many small different details that are different. That in the beginning is really cool, but as Jim says, eventually you become quite anxious about it. It usually wears off. I've noticed most people in a few weeks or a month or so, they start getting towards this adjustment period. But I've noticed people who don't talk about it, who don't come back to us and speak to about it. Whenever you have a problem, you should really speak to us and speak to your friends who you're making there, right?
There is a support network. I think really what we're trying to say is, in a nutshell, is we want you to engage and do well with the schools and the employers that you work with. But at the end of the day, we are here. We care about your well-being. We care about how well you get on as teachers. We want you to be the most effective teachers. We want you to leap out of bed and have a great time with your job.
Yeah.
If you do have any issues and problems, if you are homesick, if you do get upset, if you have anything that you need to talk about, and it's not necessarily something to do with your actual day-to-day teaching, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
We want to hear from you. Always reach out and talk to us. In fact, we would really ask you, not because there's any reason why you shouldn't reach out to your employer or your line manager there, but we would really rather you come to us first, simply because we are Westerners.
Yeah.
I mean, American's Danny's American, sorry. I'm from the UK. Obviously, you know, the Chinese culture, Danny's lived there, I've been there, but we have a Western perspective and we will understand what you're saying. They may not understand.
Yes.
I'll give you a small example. If somebody suffers from anxiety, in China, they wouldn't really understand why you would suffer from anxiety. But in the Western world, anxiety and depression, for example, is a very normal thing. Many people, suffer on the day-to-day.
Or it's better understood by society as a whole.
Exactly. And in China, that would be something which they kind of it puzzled at you. Why would you be anxious? So if you do feel that way, reach out to us. That is what we are here for. We're not just going to send you there and say all the best, have a good time. You know, we want to make sure that you're 100%.
Absolutely, and be patient. It does take time. Everything takes time, and your entire perspective is going through a redevelopment. That obviously takes a huge amount of time. So give it you need a month really to properly get towards this really comfortable place in this adjustment phase. Take your time. Don't get over nervous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So how do you manage culture shock? Danny.
There we go. Yeah. So I think this is talking about a lot of the benefits of culture shock, definitely. But the way I think that for me, I think I've noticed 3 really good ways that I've felt with dealing with it in the beginning. One is to have friends, right? You should, if you feel at the end of the day like it's all so overwhelming and you just want to stay home or something like that, but if you don't have work the next day, go on even on TripAdvisor, find your nearest foreign bar, or ask one of your friends who's obviously in everybody's center. There's going to be somebody who's lived in that city longer than you have. Ask them what to do. Go out with them. Make friends. In every single one of the cities that every one of you is in, there is a large foreign teaching network. Thousands and thousands of people. You won't always notice them at first because they're mixed into millions and millions of people, because every one of your cities has over 3 million people in it. Last I checked. But it is there, and it does help. Even if you're not a drinker or anything like that, go to a bar, make some friends, play a game of pool, do something like that. Get involved.
Yeah. The more you get involved, the more you're this strange, almost alien environment, which in some ways it will be when you first get there. All of a sudden, it will become more familiar.
Absolutely.
And you'll feel, well, actually, this isn't that dissimilar to where I've come from, but that initial shock, it may affect you that way. Some people arrive. We had one candidate that we met, Deepak. I think he's almost running China. He just arrived and everything seems to be perfect. And others have been a bit homesick. So, it depends. It's a case by case basis.
It does. The second thing I would say is to make a lot of Chinese friends and try to understand China better. Ask them a lot of questions. They'll ask you a lot of questions. Turn the conversation back on them. Ask them more and more about China. The better, more coherent picture you start to build up of the country you're in, the less you will face everything with a lack of understanding. And I think that lack of understanding is what makes people quite fearful or anxious sometimes. But it actually goes away the more you understand where you live. And I think the final thing really that helps is staying in touch with home. Talk to your family, talk to your parents, talk to your friends, let them know what's going on. keep a bit of a journal or a diary, or
Send us your pictures.
send us your pictures, obviously.
Send us little
Have a
blogs.
chat with us, some stuff like that. Keep in touch with home as well. Start to normalize essentially where you are. And eventually it just becomes normal like anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also that the whole thing about making Chinese friends is that what you'll find when you get there is generally the older generation probably won't speak great English. Some of them you'll be really shocked. They'll sort of turn around and go, oh my God, their English is fantastic.
Yeah.
What we would say is generally anyone sort of university age or lower, they're probably going to speak fairly good English to a degree. So if you want to reach out and meet people, you know, be careful with who you, not careful who you choose, but be selective, because there'll be some people you'll be able to really actually interact and talk with them and really gain more about learning about China, and they want to learn about you. So it's a really symbiotic sort of friendship that you'll reach.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Now.
So when you guys, we're preparing it for just before for obviously coming to China. Now we're talking about what's going to happen when you arrive. One of the first things that's going to happen is you have an actual visa in your passport at the moment.
Z visa.
Z visa, yeah. When you actually go to China, you're going to get a medical check, and you're going to get registered at the local police station. That is all going to happen once you have a physical address that you're at, which will happen very quickly. It's quite important that you know this, that you're going to need to register your passport at the police station. So they're going to hold on to it. They're going to transfer that into a residency permit. The residency permit lasts as long as you have an employment contract. They're going to take it and they're going to give it back to you about a month later.
And it's completely normal.
It's the mandatory way. It happens every time. It's completely in safe hands. It's with the Chinese government. You can request it back at any time and they will give it to you, but it does take that long to register you there. So receive that back, and then you're going to have a stamp on it that says infinite entry Z-type work visa. That is exactly what you need. The residency permit is for you to register. The reason you need to register at a police station is they need to make sure that you're healthy, that they know where you are, and that you're paying tax. Essentially, that's what it's for.
The tax will be deducted from your salary by the school.
And
you don't need to worry about that.
Exactly. Thanks.
So accommodation, obviously, there are issues with several of you will have different types of accommodation offer. As you probably know from our interviews, some of you will have accommodation provided automatically by the school, and you literally move in, they give you the keys, there's no issue at all. Others, they will organise accommodation viewing for you via an agent. Now, this is completely normal. Now, some of them actually may ask you for deposits. So you need to think about having a little bit of money behind you, not a great deal, but that is something that happens fairly standard, is perhaps 2 to 3 months deposit for an apartment. Now, obviously, bear in mind the apartments that you're going to see, they are just the same as the apartments you'll see here in the UK or wherever you're from. However, they will be a fraction of the cost. So we're not talking about a great deal of money. Another option, which I think is important to mention, is sometimes if you do find that you're going to be moving in and you're looking at apartments and you're not sure, you can always look at Airbnb. You could stay in an Airbnb for between £200 to £300 for an entire month, and you could just stay in one of those. They are all over China. Danny and I recently went to Beijing. Nice. We stayed in an Airbnb. We had a whole flat to ourselves. Now, the way you could do that is obviously once you've got that comfortable feeling of you've got your bearings, you know where you are, you've got an Airbnb, you just go and stay there. Once you're ready to actually move into a flat, you can then say to the school, listen, I'm ready to go. Can we please arrange some viewings? You might have also got paid by then, so you've got loads of money ready to pay. So it's worth having money with you in that eventuality, but also there are options. Have a chat with us later on after this if you want to talk about that. We're more than happy. We can even send you some links which show you in each city what you can get for the amount of money you spend, because some of you will be given an allowance and we can show you what you can get for that. Probation period?
Training? Do we do training?
Training, yeah. I didn't even see number 3.
I'll do training. So in the initial phase of everybody's work, you're going to have a training period. The training period is almost always conducted by a group of foreign teachers who've worked there for a long time. They're going to show you how to run a class. They're going to do a bit of it. So this is going to happen right after you've been picked up at the airport. You're going to have a couple days to rest, and then the next stage is usually training. That training is you're going to show you how to use the curriculum. They're going to show you how to run a classroom. They're going to show you about how to arrange a classroom setup, things like that. Whatever they end up teaching you, it's the school itself that decides how much focus they want to put on any one area, depending on how important they think that is. So be sure to pay really good attention during the training. They're going to be making sure that everything that happened in training is being undertaken, put forward in your lessons. So make sure that you are, there's no problem signposting or obviating that you are actually doing the thing that is part of the training. Once you've mastered that, then you can go a bit off piste, you can have a bit more fun, you can try to run your classes your own way. But in the beginning, stay a little safe and follow the training.
However, one thing to bear in mind, guys, and this is absolutely essential, in your training, this is also part of your probation. You will be monitored. It's not a case of being watched and literally making notes on every single thing you say or do, but they will be looking at how you respond to the training. If they feel you're a little bit lackadaisical, or perhaps you're not engaged, or you're half asleep, it can go against you, and it can cause problems. What we would say is throw yourself into training, take everything they say. If they ask you to stand up and, you know, run around in a circle, because there will be things like that, you'll be doing activity-based fun stuff, just get involved, just jump in, don't be shy. Throw yourself into it. The more you throw yourself into everything in China, the more you get back. There is no doubt whatsoever about that.
Dive into a probation period.
So probation period, some of you have got 1 month, some of you have 2. Now obviously the probation period is good for both sides, because it gives you the opportunity, as Danny rightly said, to make a list of things that maybe you're not sure about, or you may have concerns, or things you're not really understanding. It means that at the end of probation, you can go and you both have a sober discussion about what you've gained and what you might need more help with. On the other side, it gives them the ability to really gauge just how successful you're going to be. Now, obviously, we want you to be 100% from day 1 to day 365. That's really, you know, it's a job. You're going there to do a job, and there's a lot of investment and a hell of a lot of time. You've got no idea how much goes on behind the scenes to get you there. But that's what we do. That's our job. But that probation period is essential. You really have to shine. Show every single facet of what you've got. We wouldn't have put you forward, and we wouldn't be having this chat with you now unless we had confidence in you and we believed in you. We do believe in you, but obviously we can see things that perhaps the Chinese can't. They need to see smiles, energy, enthusiasm, jazz hands.
And I mean, in that probation period, obviously have fun, hang out with friends, but we do have a lot of people, have had people in the past, not a lot of people, we have had people in the past who have partied a little too hard, perhaps after work.
Fallen off a bike.
And people are, you know, because you guys are younger foreigners in a foreign country, they're wondering, you know, they're trying to make sure that, you know, that if you guys are in it for the long haul together, that you're not going to show up to work hungover, right? And they're going to look out for that. So do be careful. They're not going to believe you they're not necessarily going to always believe you if you say, oh, I'm just sick again today, right? They'll believe you the first couple of times, but after that, they're going to be like, okay. This person's clearly partying too hard.
It's like living in the UK. It's no different. You're starting a new job in the UK and behave exactly as you would.
That aspect of it is no different. Take it seriously, obviously.
So possible scenarios you might encounter. You know, there's lots of different ways to deal with what you might see. You know, the kids are going to be different. The centre managers, they're not always going to be really pally and friendly with you. You're there to do a job, and they're going to assume that you're just going to get on with that job. If you don't raise an issue, they'll assume there is no issue. So really, just the main thing is, the measure of it is to be humble and respectful, and no matter what you see, even if it's not exactly what you would be used to seeing, that's just the way things are. Another issue is that in China, in the past few years, there's now sort of trying to bring out a lot of teachers that used to be the norm in China, which means that sometimes there may be some teachers that
they aren't very good, essentially. They're not very like, they came over originally from a time where it was very easy to get a job there, and they just came over to party, have a good time.
Backpacking TEFL teachers.
Backpacking TEFL teachers, They are trying to get rid of a lot of those teachers now. We don't want to get people, we don't want you guys to get put in that category. So as long as you're taking it really seriously, you won't be. But don't try to get pigeonholed into that, because there are a lot of them, and they don't make it far in their careers necessarily, but you will.
And you may find that often, you know, and this is very true, you get a lot of teachers that are very jaded with teaching. They may have taught for years in China or Japan or Korea, and they've been to many countries. That jaded cynicism, just don't get involved with it. Just nod, smile, and say, great, fantastic, this is my time now.
Yeah, exactly. Also, any other possible scenarios?
I think, you know, you might find, going back to maybe some of these teachers, that there might be some teachers there that aren't as qualified as you. Even though you're just starting out, there might be some teachers that don't get paid as much as you. You are almost part of a spearhead of the new renaissance, the new generation of teachers. And this isn't something that's happening this month. This is something that's been going on for the last 2 or 3 years. But we are literally almost like clearing out the cupboards of what used to be China's foreign international teaching community and replacing it with a really vibrant and really successful group of people, and you guys are just part and parcel of that.
Yeah, you're our ambassadors for a new kind of teaching.
You need to wave that flag.
Absolutely. Another thing, and this is not just only true of what you're doing if you experience homesickness, this is also if you have an issue you feel you can't resolve at your workplace. Speak to us. Really talk to us. We have a long-standing relationships with all of these schools that you work with. If you have a serious problem, chances are we can solve it. You wouldn't believe the kinds of problems that get brought to us all the time, big and small, that we can directly go ahead and, you know, speak to people even higher up than your school and have their bosses tell them that they need to do something differently. If you don't tell us, we can't fix it. A lot of people think that they're isolated from assistance because they're so far away. We have an office in China. We have managers in China that are responsible for doing exactly that. So if you need us, you should reach out to us. And if you're experiencing homesickness, you should reach out to us. We know most of the foreign teacher communities in these areas. We know a lot of ways to solve it, and we've experienced it ourselves.
We've both taught all over the world. We know what it's like, and we genuinely care. We want you to be happy, so just talk to us.
I lived in China for years. I can tell you, I've been to every single city that you guys, and had fun there as well. Every single city that you guys have been placed in. I don't think anybody in this group is going somewhere I haven't personally been. So I'm happy to talk to you guys about any aspect of it. And I'm also happy once you get there to tell you about a lot of the better sides of it that you may not see if you don't go. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Quite.
Yes.
Okay. So, guys, you've listened to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're actually very much on time as well, which is fantastic. We've got a question. What question have we got already? I can't see it.
I can't see it.
Can you read it out to us?
We're experiencing difficulties. Please bear with us while I go check the question.
As a first-time teacher, do you have any more tips on nerves, or just as a first-time teacher?
Oh, as a first-time teacher, how do you calm your nerves? Any tips? Personally,
you take this one.
I'll take this one. One of the first things I would do is just remember that you are probably quite a scary and probably quite a daunting person for the kids to look up to. They're used to seeing Chinese teachers, they're used to not talking, they're used to keeping their eyes down. The Chinese system is very entrenched, so they're not encouraged to speak in class. It's actually discouraged. When you walk in, you're going to be giving them a really different, completely different teaching environment. So take deep breaths and just remember they're probably more nervous than you are. They don't know what to expect. And if those nerves do start, just take deep breaths and just throw yourself into it. It's the only way really to get over it. Once you have taught 3 or 4 classes, I would say that many, or that few, I should say, you'll suddenly find that actually it's just, you take it in your stride. I mean, I've taught, I don't know, thousands of classes. My first class, I remember, I felt very nervous. I now no longer have any kind of feeling of nerves. It is literally just something that you work through.
Preparing well really helps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that I would say that if you will spend, you should probably almost spend as long as your class takes or longer to prepare your first lesson.
Yes.
That time goes really down after you get more and more experience.
Yeah.
In my first year, it went down from like needing an hour and a half to prepare for like a 45-minute lesson because I really wanted to do well, to basically be able to do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
or if that.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, don't be too gung ho. Don't be too blasé about it. Definitely put the time in that it takes.
Yeah, but once you've done that, you'll find that you will find your own pace. You'll find your own pattern, your own
100%.
style, and you will find it very, very easy. I hope that's helped your question. Any more questions?
Lewis says, I'm going to teach in a kindergarten in Changzhou, KLK.
Mm-hmm.
Will the training be the same for me, as no mention of training has yet come up, so I'm worried about being thrown to the deep end.
Hi, Lewis.
Hi, Lewis. Yeah, there's training for everybody. Training takes a little bit of a different form. You're going to a kindergarten. I don't think there are too many people in this group that are going to a kindergarten. Kindergarten training is a little bit more. It happens over a longer period of time. It's about slowly easing into your position in the classroom. It's not necessary because there's a lot of emotional aspects of bonding with children and working with them that is in your job, and school culture as well. That's more part of your job than it is to a greater extent part of your job, or takes more center stage than it does with a language teacher. So you're going to end up transitioning into that role by doing exactly, but slowly by doing. So you're not going to be the lead person in class. You might be an assistant teacher in the beginning. Exactly. You might be asked to observe for a long period of time before you get involved. But you will have a transition, definitely.
And you will not be asked to undertake any classes until you're ready, until they feel you're ready as well. They want you to be the most effective teacher you can be. So it really is it's a two-way street.
Their parents don't. No parent wants an unprepared teacher to teach their child either. So
exactly. Hope that answers your question, Lewis.
What else?
Someone anonymous asked, do you follow a Chinese curriculum or a structure of some sort?
Oh, anonymous. Thank you for your question about curriculum. Very, very cagey. Danny, you know more about the curriculum.
So
China.
Every single one of the organizations, if we know which school you're at, you can tell us later. Everyone has its own specialized curriculum. It's all tailored around what is happening within the Chinese curriculum, because obviously they're trying to use this as a way to better their child in the Chinese education system. But it usually goes above and beyond that. So if you're expected to do this much in the Chinese education system for English, we're taking it 600% further, because that's what these kids aren't just learning for that. They're also learning to be able to speak English, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I think the parents, parents, I guess they're willing to put their hands in their pockets to really supplement their kids, to give them that extra edge. Parents, even at a very early age, when the children are born, they are thinking, I want my kid to go to a UK or a US university. And this is really
Harvard, preferably.
Harvard, Ivy League, Cambridge, somewhere like that. But that's what they want for their children. They want the best from them, and they are paying money for them to go to these centres to really perfect and hone their English.
And a lot of these curriculums are designed around like years and years of study into how language learning methodologies, language scaffolding, childhood psychology, all these things get thrown into it. Yeah, absolutely.
There's another thing to consider as well. You may, they will explain the curriculums to you in detail, so it's not something to worry about. But there are things like they have the American curriculum, some use an Australian curriculum, and some there's a two-pronged approach to the British curriculum. Some have a British curriculum that is not contextualized to British society. I'll explain what I mean by that with the second part. A British curriculum that is contextualised to British society will be a British curriculum where the books are talking about double-decker buses, Big Ben, London, the Queen. And that is a very British curriculum, British contextualised curriculum. Other curriculums will be British, and it just would be more about the way that we do things and the way we teach in Britain, but not necessarily related to living in Britain. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. You're often trying to teach about culture while teaching English.
Exactly.
That's one of the main reasons why they can't just have a Chinese teacher, besides obviously lack of English and a different actual communication and teaching style. One of the main reasons is they want their kids to understand culturally what it means to be English, or what an English person thinks of themselves, so that they can have that lessened culture shock when they do what you're about to do in reverse.
Yeah. One last thing to say, actually, the last thing, we've got more questions. If you do have any questions about the visa or anything that you need to know, please reach out to Bella. Bella is basically our in-house expert, and she is very, very good at organising and helping and guiding with that. It's not a minefield. I think it's the wrong word to use. It's quite frustrating sometimes with the visa process. It's bureaucracy. If you need any help with it, don't suffer. Please be very, very communicative. If you ask for anything by the schools that you're dealing with, if they email you and they want something from you, don't leave it over the weekend and think I'll do it on Tuesday. Send it to them then. Equally, if you have trouble, reach out to Bella or Danny and I, and we'll help and guide you all the way through the process.
Another question for you. Any advice on teaching adults?
On teaching adults, yeah, very much so. It's a completely different setup. Obviously, if you imagine kindergarten, it's not babysitting, but it's very much about play, activity-based learning, getting them engaged, making them use lots of vocabulary. The next stage, primary and secondary, is more engaged with getting them the grammar, the foundation, understanding what everything does. Take the sentence to bits, learn what they are, put them back to bits. Fantastic. Oh, back to together, I should say. When it comes to the adults, you're doing much more about honing and developing what they've already got. So in a sense, they've got a foundation. You don't need to worry about that. You're going to be working on things that they're now struggling with. So a small example, somebody once asked me, James, what is the difference between a border, a frontier, a barrier, and a boundary? And I had to really think about it. I'm not going to go through it now. I did actually explain it to them, but that's the sort of level of questions. They've already got a fairly good understanding. So some of them might really want to know the real minutiae of language, and that's something you've got to be prepared for.
Yeah.
But also, the fact that you're a native English speaker, generally, because you've understood the grammar, you're doing the TOEFL course, that's fantastic. You've got that ability now. But generally, because you're a native English speaker, if you think about it, you'll probably actually be able to work out what the answer is without having years and years of experience. And that's why native English speakers are so popular in China.
Okay, excellent. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah. Laura?
Laura Bailey.
Yeah.
Hi, Laura.
She's just asked two questions. How much paperwork is there to prepare for each lesson? So
How much
you know, the lesson
paperwork is
plans,
there to
But
prepare?
then is there other things that you need to do in terms of paperwork?
Oh, okay. Okay, so it depends how you prepare your lessons. You might be using, I mean, firstly, you're going to be using a curriculum no matter what, and there's going to be like a smart board. So
and resources, right?
So it's not like you need to like make PowerPoint slides or anything like that. But you do want to plan your flow, your lesson flow. I mean, you probably remember a little bit about lesson planning from the TEFL, but even if you don't, I think you'll get it as you go through it. You still need to know how each part of your lesson fits in with every other part. So some people do as small as a single diagram, but they act it out. I always say it to myself, like I'll just go through it verbally with myself aloud, like an insane person. And that tends to work really well for me before I teach a lesson. Or some people write out like line for line what they're going to do in the beginning. It's really up to you how best you prepare for things.
I think it's also school by school. Some schools will actually require some, tangible evidence of what you're going to do in the lesson.
Yeah.
And that's all part of making a lesson plan. Others will be a little bit more informal about it. They'll be, not quite so important. But there will be some paperwork, but you're not going to be expected to do a lot of clerical administration.
Exactly.
That's not what you're there for.
Exactly. I guess interestingly enough, because China can be quite bureaucratic at times, I'm sure you've noticed from your visa, but companies usually aren't. So there's not usually as much bureaucracy or paperwork that you need to go through when you're doing something like little tiny events don't need to have individual pieces of paper for them. I don't really know how to explain that better, but people they're not expecting one uniform form that you're going to fill out at the end of every single class usually. If it is, it's going to be something very, very short.
And if they do, that may only be in your probation. It literally is just a monitoring and appraisal.
Yeah. Something simple like that.
Yeah.
Do we have another question?
Yeah. So Laura asked another question. How did you connect with your classes, especially different age groups?
Oh, that's a good question, Laura. Can I answer that one? Well, one thing I do, Laura, it's really actually one thing you need to do first of all with your classes, and I know it sounds really simple, learn their names. First and foremost, the minute you learn somebody's name and they suddenly realize, oh, you know my name. Yeah. A great way for doing this, guys, and it's something I've done with many classes when I first started, is you all hopefully all know what an adjective is now and a noun. So if we imagine Danny is Danny's name begins with D, my name begins with J. So we could think, right, Danny is actually a noun. It's a name. We need to think of an adjective to describe Danny. So we could say dangerous Danny, yeah, or dippy
That's what they
Danny,
call me.
dopey Danny.
Yeah, that's actually.
I
what they
could
call me.
be Jolly James, joking James. If you say to them, everybody has to think of an adjective that begins with the first letter of their name. Bella, what could you be? Beautiful Bella.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So what you do is you get them to do a little thing like that, and you get them to write their name. So it could be dangerous Danny. It could be joking James. All of a sudden, their name's there. You know all their names. You keep that up the first day. You've engaged with them, and all of a sudden they think, "Wow, this person actually knows my name."
Yeah.
What you'll find is they have Chinese names, but they will probably all choose an English name. So you'll find that that's one really good way of
Sometimes
actually.
it's not even names. Sometimes they're Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Iron Man, I hear a lot. The Hulk.
Yeah.
People get, for some
Yeah.
reason, they center around Marvel themes.
I had one called Devlin Cavalier. I don't know. I think they just sounded like two posh names that were words that they found and put together. But yeah, just take time and ask questions about them. Another thing I do to really engage a class when I first start is to let them guess things about. So for example, on a whiteboard, I would write James, Canterbury, 48. That's not my waist size. Unfortunately, that's my age. And then, pizza, Ferrari. So what you do is you point to the name, James, and you say, okay. And eventually one of them will go, what's your name? And you say, James, cross it out. Okay, where are you from? Canterbury.
Yeah.
Good. I'm not talking. They're talking. You're getting them to ask questions.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that.
And you should get to know your students as well. The more you understand about their interests, the more you understand about what they like to do, the more you understand about where they're coming from. Talking to their parents as well. You often get an opportunity to speak to parents. The best pictures you can build up for them is going to help you empathize with their situation, make lessons interesting and engaging for them. They're going to notice that saying their name is so
It
important.
really is.
The sweetest sound anybody can ever hear is their own name.
That's right, Dan.
Thank you.
Hope that helps, Laura. Lovely Laura.
What else?
So this one's a fun one. Is there Nando's in China?
Actually,
Is there a Nando's in China?
there. Oh my God, I forget what it was called.
Listen, at the end of the day, let's be fair. You won't want to eat in Nando's. The food is exceptional. You might find a Nando's. We went to the Great Wall of China, and unfortunately, there's a KFC at the Great Wall of China. You will find pretty much everything you could find in the UK. There are many McDonald's. There are Burger King. My suggestion would be branch out.
That's fair to say.
Yeah, try the food. You'll love it. The food is absolutely phenomenally fantastic and incredibly cheap. So yeah, if there's a Nando's, Google it, have a look. But try to maybe get out of your comfort zone.
Definitely get out of your comfort zone for food. But I have to say, when I was there, one place wanted to open a Nando's so badly that they sent a chef undercover to Nando's, learned how to make Nando's food down to the sauce, and replicated a Nando's to the bird.
Is that true?
It's true. To the bird, but they made the bird purple.
There you go.
And
Welcome to China.
they called it peri peri something.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Pori pori.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Guys, we are coming to...
Yeah, we're coming right up on it.
We've
Yeah.
got about 10 minutes left. So any more questions, anybody?
Oh no.
Okay, so what happens if you've got unwell and can't?
For work?
Ooh.
You gotta, so what we do, what everybody does in China, when you are ill, is usually go to a hospital. Not because it's something crazy or something like that. That is just the normal status, like that's the normal thing. You go there because it's free, you've got health insurance, and that's just the normal situation that everybody's expected to do. You'll get a doctor's note, bring that into work with you, show that you're not feeling well. If you are feeling well enough to come into work, do come into work, but obviously you don't want to be around kids and be ill. So only come into work if you think that you're, if you have any suspicion that you might be contagious or anything like that, go to the actual hospital. There are doctors there that will see you that are not like ER professionals. They are meant for that specific job of handing out listening to you, taking your vitals or whatever, and handing out doctor's notices for employers.
Like we would go to the doctor's surgery,
Yeah.
you go to hospital. One thing to say though, guys, is I'm sure by now you've probably all got WeChat or you're about to get WeChat. Obviously, you will have your centre manager's WeChat when you arrive at the school. It's essential you let them know if you're not going to be able to make it to school.
Yeah.
You must let them know with plenty of time,
Yeah.
because obviously if they feel that you've just not turned up
Yeah.
or you've been perhaps a little bit not so engaged or making the effort, that could go against you. So as long as you're very clear with your communication, let them know.
The letdown can be hard if you don't show up, because kids go through school all day and then they come to see you usually, unless you're kindergarten or doing the adults training program. Most of you guys are teaching this thing. Kids are really excited to do this. And if somebody has to say class isn't happening today because they don't have enough teachers to teach, makes the center look bad, it makes the bosses look bad, and
it will go badly.
It will go badly, and people are quite sad. If you have a real, if you let people know as early in advance as possible, they can almost always arrange a cover teacher. But if you can't let them know in advance, or if you can only let them know a few hours in advance, show up and physically say something like, I'm here, but I don't feel well enough to teach. I'm about to go to the hospital. I hope that's okay. And let them know.
Fingers crossed, you'll all be absolutely perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's a very healthy place to live, actually.
It is.
Food.
Exactly.
Food's great.
Food's good.
Any more questions?
Is it likely that a drug test will be required when the medical check is undertaken?
No, it never is.
I don't know if you can hear Bella, guys, so I'll just say what she just said.
Yeah.
Will you be required to take a drug test? Was that an anonymous one?
Yeah, I can imagine. No, you're not.
No, you won't.
No.
No, don't worry. The medical check, when you get there, it's very rudimentary. It's simply an X-ray of the chest and a general MOT to make sure that
blood
you're
test,
healthy.
EKG, X-ray, and an eye test, an eyesight test.
Yeah.
Some,
But the blood test is not looking for illegal substances. They're trying to make sure you don't have any
Viral
awful
disease.
viral diseases
Yeah.
that could be passed on to the children.
it's exactly what it's about.
Yeah. But obviously, I mean, let's say we may as well mention this while we're here to Anonymous or anybody else. Please don't take any drugs to China. And please, obviously, refrain from anything like that, because that really will end your trip.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
you know, that's something.
China's very, very, very fun, but
Not.
it's
There are
strictness up to a
rules.
point.
There are rules.
There are rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Anonymous. We're with you.
Okay, so Laura asked, how do you find foreign hospitals in our different cities?
Oh, Laura.
Well, you can always find private doctors. In every major city, there's going to be a private doctor. We can help you actually find it, but usually, unless there's something else unless there's some specific concern you have that you want to let us know afterward, and then we can have a chat about it. Usually, you don't need one. Doctors are educated to an incredibly high standard in China. There is going to be somebody in any given hospital who speaks really good English and is going to be able to help you. Foreign doctors are very expensive. They're not going to be covered by your insurance, and they're usually unnecessary. It's usually just to give people like a peace of mind of some sort. But the standard of any time I've ever been to the hospital in China, it's very quick. But its standard is incredibly high.
Very high.
Yeah.
Very clean.
Very clean.
professional.
Yeah. And
There's
they
a lot
know
of
what they're
people
doing.
there. They have to look after them.
Exactly.
Any more questions? Thank you, Laura.
Faux
Oh,
pas.
Ashley, how serious is it to
Consider promotion.
have a social faux pas?
I
Let's
keep
put it this way, guys. I mean, I'll say a quick thing.
Yeah.
They know that you won't know everything about
Yeah,
their
they do.
culture. There'll be a lot of forgiving. They don't expect you to know every single more of their cultural differences, and they will know that if you say or do something, they'll probably go, "Oh, he doesn't know any better."
They always do.
There's not going to be many occasions where you're going to cause great offence. Danny, you live there
The
a
general
lot
feeling
longer.
on the ground is, and this is true for whenever you are a foreigner in China, people are really proud to have you there. It wasn't so long ago that people couldn't put food on the table. Now it's one of the richest countries in the world and steadily going stronger. That's a sign of where they've come, is that you're there. That they're able to hire foreigners from other countries to make their country more international and bring you there. want to show you that they understand and that this is a welcoming place to live. As best as they can, they try to do it, and they're really good at it. So I give you an example. I once stuck chopsticks directly into a bowl of rice facing upward, and people just laughed at the table, and I didn't know what was going on. And then somebody turned to me and explained, that's how you put incense in the incense burner at a funeral, and you're never ever supposed to do that. But it was with a smile on his face the whole time. And he's like, but everybody knows you don't know. Otherwise, they would have gasped. He's a really nice guy. So that's exactly how it'll be treated. It'll be laughed off usually.
And to be honest with you, once you get to know other people, peer teachers that are working there, you'll have other people that have already been there.
Yeah.
When you get to your school, you'll have a chat with them. When you go out, there'll be things you'll notice, you'll start to learn all that stuff. But don't worry too much about that.
Let's take one last question.
We have two more questions, guys.
So, all medical related, would you be able to transfer the prescription I take over to China? And do you recommend any vaccinations before traveling? There are many conflicting opinions.
Okay, I'll answer both of those. Prescription one we'll get back to you about. It's quite specific, but we know the rules. So we'll get to that one
We
too.
get asked this a lot.
Yeah. However, the conflicting opinions online. I have never gotten a vaccination. Did you?
I haven't. No.
I lived there
And
for
I'm absolutely fine.
I lived there for 5 years. I've never had a vaccination.
You don't
going
need
there.
to get any vaccinations, guys.
However, if you want
Genuinely.
to, it doesn't hurt, right? A person should always be vaccinated. That's just all. I think that's unless this is a contentious issue. I don't think it is in the UK. In America, it's a little more so.
Yeah.
Right.
Taxes.
You should just get, if you're uncertain or if there's conflicting opinions, just get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you feel you need to, fantastic.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you,
I never did.
You can actually go onto the World Health Organization, look it up. You don't need anything at all.
Yeah.
What was the other question?
What was the final question?
That's it.
I got the prescription. There was a double barrel question.
Prescription, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take that one.
I think the best thing to do with the prescription is generically, whatever you can get here,
Yeah.
you can probably get in China.
Yes.
Many people, if you are on a repeat prescription, as I am,
Yeah.
I would get 6 months from my doctor, 6 months supply, and then I'd make sure that once I got there after 2 months that I'd found a doctor that was willing to then prescribe that to me.
Most doctors will do that.
Exactly. However, if you do have a specific medication, if you want to talk to us about that privately, reach out to us. We can actually do a bit of research and we can help you on that. So,
Yeah.
But generally, if you can get it here,
You can get it there. That's right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for showing up today. I hope you guys learned a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Next slide. Oh my
yes.
God. Thank you guys for showing up today. I'm really glad. I'm really excited. You guys don't know how much personal investment and pride we take in the fact that you guys are going there.
Yeah.
And we're incredibly excited for all of you.
Yeah.
We're
Proud of you.
We are really, and we love doing this, and we really hope that this is everything that you guys hope it is. We think it will be, but keep us in the loop. Give us your feedback, but also most importantly, keep us in the loop in everything that's happening with you guys. Let us know how you're getting on. We genuinely want to know. We're not just saying this, right?
Don't sit in silence if you're sad or you're homesick or you're worried about something or you're confused about something. Don't keep it to yourself. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. All right, guys, have a good night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. And we hope to visit you guys in China on the other side very soon. Yep. We often do. So we hope to see you. Yeah. All right.
We have been to Beijing recently, and we took a few of our teachers that we've not even met. We've only met them on Skype, like yourselves. We took them out for a few beers, and we had a great night. And it was really nice to meet them. So you never know, we may meet you guys at some point in the future.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, just to say, we are actually closing the office tomorrow. We will be back at our desks by the 6th of January. However, that doesn't mean you can't contact us. Don't try and give us a call on Christmas Day. You probably won't get through. But any other day, genuinely, that's what we're here for. We are pretty much surgically attached to our phones. We have all the emails come through. If you need us, if it's something that can wait, then fantastic, give us a shout in January. If it isn't, just reach out. We are still here.
Yeah. And 新年快乐.
Yeah.
You guys will know what that means soon.
He said.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
And if you need us, just reach out.
Yeah.